Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat and today I'm going to be doing a tour of my bookshelf and my entire book collection for you guys. So these are my new bookshelves and I just set them up like this like a month or so ago. So I haven't had them like this for very long, but I am so happy with how they turned out, and I filmed a whole bookshelf reorganization or like expanding my bookshelf video over on my Patreon for the Alice tier. So yeah, if you want to go check that out, my Patreon is always linked down below. But yeah, I'm just sitting on my bed for this intro because my bookshelves are in my bedroom at the end of my bed, and they are the Bailey bookshelves from IKEA. So I've got the two kind of larger size ones and then the one skinny tall one in the middle. I used to just have one like this and a kind of half-sized one. As you can kind of tell, I've got so many books now that I wanted to expand my bookshelves, create some more space for my books, and I'm so happy with how they turned out. So I thought that I would show you guys in my first ever bookshelf tour on this channel. So yeah, let's get started with the bookshelf tour. So this is my first bookshelf. It is the top left hand corner, and on this shelf I've got all of my ARCs. I've also got this frame with a quote from The Secret History in it. I am nothing in my soul if not obsessive. One of my favourite quotes from that book. And dangling from it I have this rose necklace that I didn't really know where else to put, and I thought it looked kind of cute there. And then right next to that we've got this big slab of amethyst that my grandmother got me years and years ago when I was a child, and I use it as a bookend. So on this shelf I've got a mixture of kind of advanced reader copies and finished copies. So The House of Soaring Stars, that one's a finished copy that I was very lucky to be sent. One of the books that I was most excited for was Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mallows. Please tell me why I haven't read this book yet. I started it but I didn't finish it. So yeah, let me know if you guys like it, if you think I should continue reading it, and what other books on this shelf should be my top priority. Next shelf down is one of my favourites. It is my thriller and murder mystery shelf. So on the right here we have all of my Agatha Christie's, and also the only one that I've actually read, which is And Then There Were None. But yeah, those are my Agatha Christie's. And then in the middle as another bookend I've got this big candle I got last Halloween. I'm thinking of like emptying it out and putting some trinkets in there. And then next to that is my copy of Out, which had to be at the front because it is the best cover. I've also got Verity by Colleen Hoover, which I read earlier this year and really loved, on this shelf. Next to that are my Gillian Flynn books. I've also got this one, which is the Decagon House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji, one of my favourite murder mysteries, on this shelf. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm definitely trying to get through more of these this month as it's October. Underneath the thrillers we have my naked hardcover shelf, and I've arranged it in somewhat of a rainbow of the spines. The only book on the shelf that isn't actually naked is Book of Night by Holly Black, and that is because the spine is so beautiful as it is and it's kind of boring under the dust jacket, but I think it blends in very nicely. There are so many books on this shelf in particular that I haven't read yet, and I think I'm going to give myself an expiry date for these. So if I haven't read some of them in the next year, I think it's time to give them away. The Castaways by Lucy Clark, Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I've had that one for so long now. And also Those People by Louise Candlish. Underneath that we've got my romance shelf mainly. I've got some darker romances on the left, including my Scarlett St. Clair collection. I love A Touch of Darkness. Then next to those we've got my Sally Rooney's and this copy of Beautiful World, Where Are You, that I got from the airport. I've also got my Ali Hazelwood books here, The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. And then my favourite Sophie Kinsella, which is I've Got Your Number. And then one of my favourite things on my bookshelves, one of my favourite items, is this tea light holder that my granny got me. And I just put my bookmarks in here. So I've got some from Waterstones. I got this Addie LaRue one at Yalk. I've also got this Boo one that I got from Comic-Con, and some of my favourite ones, which are of course the Divine Pages & Co bookmarks, like the Celestial Butterfly one. So that's it for this romance shelf. It's definitely one of my favourites. And now moving on to the next one, which is my classic shelf. I've got all of my classics on here, including my Jane Austens. I love these editions. I think they're the vintage classics. I've also got my old school copy of Romeo and Juliet that I studied in year 8 or year 9. This is very old, guys, like 10 years old. And one of my favourite editions on this shelf is this edition of The Great Gatsby that I think Caitlin told me about ages ago, and I still haven't read this freaking book. This shelf also has my Penguin cloth bound classics. I've got Dracula, Frankenstein and Wuthering Heights there. And I've also got this little Prince Macmillan classic on this shelf that Aria got me for Christmas recently. And then on the end here are my favourite editions of classics. It's the Penguin Deluxe Classics editions, and this one is my all-time favourite, Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's just beautiful, beautiful artwork. And I'm definitely planning on getting the Master and the Margarita in this edition next. I'm going to have to go handheld for the lowest shelves, but this one is my kind of classic teen shelf. So we've got the Twilight series, the Infernal Devices series, and also the Hush Hush series. I love those so much. And the ones where the pages are face out is just because they are super colourful and bright, and I thought I'd create more of an aesthetic as much as possible using these books anyway. Next up, we're going to go to the skinny bookshelf in the middle, starting with the top shelf, which is my Alice's Adventures in Wonderland collection. One of those books is this Chris Riddell version of the story, and I love the illustrations in here. I've actually got one of them as a print downstairs that my mum got me for my birthday. This one, I am obsessed. I've also got this edition that my friend Tasman got me, and it's one of my favourites. It's kind of this manga style illustration, and there are illustrations throughout. It is just lovely. Again, I had this pages face out, like some of the other ones on my shelves that you'll see dotted around, but I'm going to put this back spine face out because I actually really, really like it, and I don't know why I had it like that. The next shelf down is my Greek retelling or Greek mythology shelf, and on top I've got this teacup from an Illumicrate box. I think it's the Athena one. I've also got this new addition to the shelf, which is this pillar that I actually got from Catalonia. I love this so much, I can't even express. As soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted it on this shelf. So at the bottom here we've got the Song of Achilles. I've got my Jennifer Saints as well. I've got a Natsuo Carino book, the Goddess Chronicle, and Circe, which is my favourite, and then Galatea at the top. I do usually have my Bloomsbury Modern Classic edition of the Song of Achilles as well, but Jamshed's borrowing it at the moment so he can read it. The middle shelf in my entire bookcase is my favourite bookshelf, and the first one is Laini Taylor's Strange the Dreamer. I love this edition as well as this book, so I had to have it face out on the left there. As these books are my favourites, I'm going to go through each one. So the next one is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling, which is also an art. It's a gothic story that very much reminds you of Crimson Peak, and it's definitely supposed to kind of be reminiscent of Rebecca as well. Next up is another gothic, and it is A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which is probably in my top 3. It's a polyamorous romance between Dracula's brides, so it is fantastic and beautifully written. Next to that one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is a classic favourite of mine from a few years ago now. This one helped me understand myself a lot more, and that's why it's a favourite. The Pisces by Melissa Broder is a new favourite of mine. I read it during the summer and enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. It's very weird, and that's why I like it. The only author on this bookshelf to have 2 books, very special, is Mona Awad. Here we have All's Well and Bunny, which are both absolute hits. If you haven't read either of them yet, definitely read them this autumn. And last but certainly not least, we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which is probably my favourite book on this shelf. It's actually perfection in a book, so I highly recommend if you haven't read it yet. It's a very smart and interesting murder mystery, and that really, really simplifies it. It has incredible characters and, again, stunning writing. Moving down another shelf, we've got my v.e.shwab shelf, the only shelf on my entire bookcase that is dedicated to one author. So we've got Gallant here face out because that's my favourite. I've also read Vicious, but I'm yet to read Vengeful, so that is on the to-do list. And then on the left-hand side, we have A Darker Shade of Magic, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, this beautiful 1-year anniversary edition, I think, and This Savage Song, which is the latest one that I've collected. This is another special edition with really, really cool sprayed edges. I love this shelf so much, and I can't wait to read more of v.e.shwab's books. And if you're watching this video at the beginning of October, check out my last video to vote on which one I should read next. My sincerest apologies for the angle of this shot, but this is my poetry collection. And on the right, we've got some books that I've borrowed from a friend. I've got some Ocean Vuongs. I've got my old copy of Sylvia Plath from my A-levels. This Sarah Crossan book, Here is the Beehive, is actually a book written in verse I've just popped here. And then probably my favourite book, which you guys probably all know by now, Watering the Soul by Courtney Peppernell. A couple of my other favourites include Film for Her by Orion Carlotto and Chris Riddell's Poems to Fall in Love With, because that one, the illustrations are chef's kiss. Okay, so I'm going to briefly touch on these books. At the bottom here are my middle grade series. Here are my Aragon series. I think they're called The Inheritance Cycle. I loved these books when I was like 12 or 13. And swiftly moving on to my top shelf of my final bookcase.
Hi, so this is the Jamshed takeover. Don't really know what to say. Well, yeah, these are my book collection. It's not everything that I've read, but the one that Kat's touching now, that's one of my favourite books. And that one, Diary of Anne Frank. I also like A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. And yeah, I think she will move on to the next bookshelf.
This is a lot of Jamshed's books, his fiction books and his non-fiction books as well. His favourites include The Pianist, Anne Frank's Diary, and also A Thousand Splendid Suns, which isn't here, by Khaled Hosseini. Then on the left-hand side are all of my non-fiction books, my small little non-fiction collection, including I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which is my favourite of the bunch. I literally just read this like a month ago. It was really good. I've also got the Crystal Bible that my grandmother also got me when I was younger. I think still a child. She was really into her crystals, and that's definitely a theme on my bookcase. The next shelf down is probably a temporary bookshelf, and it is specifically for Halloween. I've got my wax melt burner little cauldron thing that I turned around because I realised you guys could see me. And then to the right of that is my Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. I read book 1 and I haven't read any of the others since, but yeah, that's going to change very soon during Vampathon. I've also got these really cute autumnal leaf decorations that were recently in a PR box for my ARC copy of the other ones. Also on this shelf are my Jennifer L. Armentrouts, my Amy McCaws, and this edition of Frankenstein that Jodie got me for I think my birthday or Christmas. Another of my favourite shelves is this kind of contemporary fiction, literary fiction shelf, and I have sandwiched these books or held them up with these bookends. They are rose quartz, and again from my grandmother, which we found, I think she gave them to us or we found them at her house after she passed away. So I'm really sorry, I know a lot of people ask about these, but I can't tell you where she got them, unfortunately. Also, as decoration on this shelf, I've got a little frame with butterflies, which I found at this like vintage secondhand shop. Some of my favourite books on the shelf include Lonely Castle in the Mirror. I loved this one earlier this year. I also really enjoyed Other People's Clothes by Carla Henkel and My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And the books that I'm really excited to read next are Insatiable by Daisy Buchanan, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and The Swimmers by Chloe Lane. I also got this really cool hardcover copy of Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell recently. Let's take a trip down to my next shelf, which is my fantasy shelf. I've got a lot of different fantasy here. I've got Cassandra Clare, I've got my Holly Black series, The Cruel Prince, The Priory of the Orange Tree. I've also got my Laini Taylor books, the paperbacks of Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, and next to those, the Poppy War trilogy that I'm so excited to read. Face out, I've got Forest of Souls by Laurie M. Lee, which I have just started and it's actually really good. And then next to that one, I've got the Fellowship of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I am so excited by this shelf. I'm so excited to get back into fantasy. And yeah, the next shelf down is my graphic novels and manga shelf. I've got a couple of illustrated short stories as well, but yes, I've organized them from light to dark. And face out, I've got Frankenstein by Junji Ito. Next to that, I've got The Liminal Zone, which is the next one that he's just come out with. Probably my favourite book on the shelf right now has to be The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 1, which I just read last week. It is so good, and if you haven't heard of it, I definitely recommend you look it up like right after this video. I'll leave it linked below because it is my favourite manga now. Currently, this is probably my most crammed shelf, and if I actually buy any more, I'll have to either get rid of Frankenstein face out or expand it somehow. But I do have a plan, and you know, that will probably happen in the next few months. And we have reached my last shelf, which is the bottom shelf on the right hand side. This is for all of my YA, including fantasy and contemporary. We've got A Good Girl's Guide to Murder there, which is my current read, really good. And then we've got my Mary H.K. Choi's, my Jenny Hans, And yeah, just a bunch of other ones. The Girls of Paper and Fire is also there, and Girls of Fate and Fury. Oddly enough, I don't have the second one and I haven't read it yet. Boo. Boo. Okay, so that was it for my bookshelf tour. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in a comment below and I'll try and answer them best I can. I'll also try and link all the books that I specifically mentioned, like the editions of them and stuff like that. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, leave a crystal emoji down below. I feel like a crystal ball. I don't even know if there's a crystal emoji. Either a crystal emoji or a book emoji down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye!